us for the governance of this plan.
Right, so you are the regional water management group here?
De facto, yes.
Well, just like the group that was appointed to do the plan.
That's correct.
Okay, but now it's graduated into an actual governance group, not
Well,
just a committee. That's,
The governance states that the committee will be the governance of the plan. I'm not understanding your question.
well, okay, I'm just trying to figure out who are the governors.
Okay, yeah.
And if the committee is still the governors representing those entities.
Yes.
That's clear, thank you.
Okay.
And who is here from the Watershed Protection District?
Watershed Protection District?
Yes, sir, that's
Lake
the
County.
participant and for Lake County and the Watershed Management Group?
Well, Tom just stepped out to get minutes.
Okay. And did he identify himself as representing the Watershed Protection District or the Department of Water Resources?
I don't know. Did you write down what he said?
He represented himself as the Department of Water Resources,
And that's why I'm asking.
which is de facto the Lake County Watershed Protection District.
By what order?
That's what the IRWP states. So it has
Right,
the 4 different agencies that are part of the Regional Water Management Group
right,
that have elected their staff to represent them as the coordinating committee.
right.
I mean, do you want him to,
I want somebody here to represent the Watershed Protection District.
that's what his role is.
That's what Tom's doing.
Okay,
Yeah, we can let Tom speak to that, but that's
Yeah.
what the IRWP states, that's what the MOU that we all have amongst ourselves states.
and you know what, at the IRWP level and in that whole process, I'm totally with you on that. What's not clear is that literal connection here to the staff in the County of Lake.
Oh,
And
okay.
so that's an issue that's being undertaken by our LAFCO to try to determine who the district is. So, yeah, we have that legal authority. I mean, it's de facto because of the WIRMP, it's not clear, actually.
Good morning.
It's belongs to the district
Yeah,
here.
it is.
Okay, well, that,
Just
yeah,
so
that
you
would
know.
be, I would let Tom
Yeah.
clear that up.
Sure.
It would be, you know,
It's an important issue to us.
Sure.
If you don't mind me saying that.
no, that's why we're here, is to hear from the
Right.
stakeholders. But
Sure.
the IRWP clearly states that who the regional water management groups are. And then
Right.
each of those regional water management groups can elect staff at any time to represent them on the coordinating.
Elect,
Yes,
By what
assign.
assign.
Bad choice of words.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how the authority
Assign is the
is
better
handed
word.
down. I'm looking for the chain of evidence, or
Okay.
whatever it takes to identify how our district
Sure.
is represented here, because I'm a taxpayer for the district.
Sure.
I'm not a taxpayer for the Department of Water Resources per se. So, that would be nice to clarify.
Well, when Tom comes in, we'll let him talk a little bit about it.
Great, thank you.
Did you have any other comments, or anyone else have any other public comments? Anything that's not on the agenda?
New person showed up.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir, could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Mike Dunlap.
Good morning, Mike. Okay, let me give Tom just a minute here, so he's got a few things on his chair right now, minutes and question or two to answer. Well, actually, this next one's fairly quick. Action items that were before the coordinating committee. So, what this first item, send copy package, DVD to Jeff Sharp. The Westside RDP recently, I guess about 3 or 4 weeks now, recently submitted the actual Westside RDP to Department of Water Resources for review, for completeness, and to make sure that it met all the requirements of the Proposition 84 guidelines. And what this first item was is that I was sending also the same package to Jeff, but I just sent a copy to all the coordinating committee members. All this information is available on our Westside website, so it's all available there to the public if anyone wants to see what we submitted.
Chris, do you know what the timeline is for the response from DWR?
Kristen, are you on the phone? From what I understand, that they are supposed to turn around in 60 days and let you know whether or not, if there's anything that's remiss, if there's any clarifications they want. And Kristen said that she'd stick right to that. Yeah, so it should be a fairly quick response. And it ties into a later item we have, a potential grant application, because one of the conditions of the grant applications is that the IRWP must be approved or be in the queue at least with DWR in order to go forward with any grant application. So that's an important step for us, is to have that in the queue, and hopefully it should be approved by DWR before we even submit any grant applications.
Excuse me, Chris, is that the one that was approved last summer?
That's correct. So
But it
the
just still
plan
hasn't,
itself,
still hasn't gone through DWR's approval?
no, as you know, there's a lot of red tape with all these regional water
Yeah,
management
just
groups, so
doesn't
we all had to
go, yeah.
adopt it ourselves.
Right.
Make sure that everything was on the same page, and then what we wanted to do is put together a kind of a cheat sheet to show DWR where all the parts of the IRWM were lining up with their Prop 84 guidelines, so we had to put that together as well.
Got it.
And so we got that all together, and then we submitted to DWR about a month ago.
And would it be possible to see that, is that also online?
That's all. The cheat sheet, I can put that on the website.
That would be great,
Sure.
yeah,
This was
because that's
More than-
really important to us.
Sure, yeah, it shows you where to look in the IRWM, where all the different parts are.
Sure, excellent.
And there's also a submittal letter,
That's
very,
the one we have.
very
It's on the agenda.
nondescript, informal, but I can put that on there too.
Oh, that'd be great.
Chris, have there been any other state agencies involved in the review of the plan? I mean, ultimately it's DWR, but were, for instance, State Water Resources Control Board or any of the other state agencies?
Good question for Kristen, who just came in. So Kristen, the question was,
Oh, great.
for the IRWMPs that are submitted to the department, are any other agencies involved in review of those documents?
The regional boards used to be involved with certain components of it, but unfortunately, since we're trying to expedite things and make it go faster, I think it's going to primarily be DWR now.
There's another question. 60 days, that's the review period for the IRWMPs?
For them right now, sorry. Yes, 60 days, calendar days, yes.
Okay. And we had a question for you, Tom, while you were out of the room. So.
Well, that's why I left.
No, you just got appointed to 3 new committees, too.
Okay.
So-
So, I will not serve.
One of the questions that we had about the coordinating committee, back to the regional water management groups, that each of the agencies that signed the IRWP adopted it, are part of the MOU, they assigned staff. And one of the questions were for, I'm sorry, what was the name again of the Lake County Water Resources Association?
Watershed Protection
Watershed
District, I'd like to
Protection.
know who's representing the Watershed Protection District in this RWMG/coordinating committee function for the WIRMP implementation.
Our primary representative is Scott DeLeon, who's director of the Watershed Protection District. And I am the alternate now since Gary has left.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question? Any more, we need to go on that?
As far as it goes, sure.
Okay. All right, so let's get back to action items. So 1 is complete. Number 2, notify all stakeholders as soon as possible. We are looking at existing new projects. We have sent out information via our web list, our email list. We put information on our Westside IRWP about open enrollment now for projects for Westside IRWP. We had, I guess, when we first started going through this process, we did a major enrollment process for getting projects into the plan, and we kind of stopped at a certain point because we were looking at the grant application last year. And what the coordinating committee decided over the course of the last year was we wanted to make it more informal and just keep it an open enrollment process, so that if anyone had a good idea, any projects they wanted to submit that would help meet the objectives or goals of the plan, we just want to keep it an open enrollment process so that projects can get in at any time. Doesn't mean you're going to get any money, doesn't mean any of us are going to get any money for these projects, but what it does allow is it lets everyone see that there are these projects out there, a chance to coordinate maybe and connect some projects together, and there's also potential for other foreign funding outside of what the department has with the prop money. So there's other grants and opportunities out there. As long as you have your projects in these IRWPs, you're going to be eligible for these other funding pots. So we want to keep it as informal as possible. So that's been complete. Submit IRWP to DWR, that's complete. That was March 24th. Ongoing process, updating the Westside website. A couple things we just talked about, those are some updates here recently. Develop a fact sheet, collect information on projects submitted for funding. That's complete. That's also one of the updates to the website. There's a whole bunch of new information on the projects tab. Talks about what we just talked about, the open enrollment process, what we're looking for. We'll be updating that here probably pretty soon when we hear a little bit more information. I think we're going to maybe switch one of the agenda items, the DWR update, to after this action items, if you don't mind, Kristen, just to get a little more information if you've heard anything more about the drought solicitation funding and what have you, because that will play a little bit into what we're telling all of our stakeholders as far as what we're going to need from them from these projects. Let's see, send Chris the list of focus areas that were identified by DWR. That's the action item. Kristen, did you send it?
Yeah, I
Okay.
did.
Let's see, agenda, draft items, circulated.
Chris, this is Jeff.
Yes.
Sure.
Hi,
I
Jeff.
just want to tell him I'm on the line now.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Okay, so this item's in progress, updating new proposals. That's going to be kind of a living document, because as we hear more from the department, we'll be updating that information, that kind of that fact sheet for all the stakeholders, so that if anything new comes up, again, I'll put an update date there so you know that something's changed. There's probably the March 24th date is what you see on there now. That's probably the best information we have at this point, but as this is evolving, the draft guidelines came out a couple of weeks ago, and they're going to be final. Kristen will tell us all about this. So we may hear some more information, some new information, so we'll update our project information and that fact sheet for all the stakeholders as soon as we hear anything different. Okay, and we sent out a doodle poll that's already complete. We have the Muscle Task Force meeting is going to be right after this meeting. We may take a small break to move our cars so we don't get tickets and grab our sandwiches. So we'll see where we are in the timeline and maybe take a 10-15 minute break. So this is where, if everyone doesn't mind, I'd like to switch agenda item number 8, the DWR update, and put that in front of number 5. So no objections, can we just go ahead and do that?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so the PSP and guidelines for the 2014 drought solicitation were released on April 3rd. And they're both up on the DWR IRWM website, if anybody's interested in reading them. Just to give you the high-level overview, $200 million was expedited for drought-related actions, and the remaining $250 will be for the implementation grants next summer. The new requirements that are within this new guideline package is the human right to water. Projects will get, I think, 3 points if they address the human right to water, which is like the basic need for human consumption. Agricultural water management plans are now requirements. They were requirements before, but now we're really going to ensure that those are completed. CASGEM, the department will be addressing these on the project proponent and on the applicant level based on whether or not the project or the applicant is located within a high and medium priority basin.
Can I ask you a question there?
Yeah.
So, for Solano County, the water agency has submitted to be the monitoring entity for the countywide, and we submitted on the date that it was required, and the department has asked for continuous updates and has never officially recognized us as the monitoring entity as of yet. How does that play in if we submit a grant on behalf of the Westside?
But within the CASGEM database, you're recognized already as a monitoring entity, aren't you? No?
Well, yes and no. It depends on how you read the thing.
There's a notification.
Right.
You know, the difference between notification and ME. So Solano's has added notification, but they're not an ME yet.
That's right, it doesn't say Amy next to
Are
it.
you working with Bill Brewster and Aaron Smith at all?
Not either
Okay.
one of them,
I'll
no.
speak with them because they
It's
came.
Mark Superhill.
Oh, okay. They came to me with the map of issues within our regional office.
Mhm.
And I don't remember anybody within Westside being on the list. So,
Aren't you guys a
For-
monitoring entity?
We are a monitoring entity
But-
for 6 basins, I think.
yeah, do you have basins that are on the high and medium priority
Uh,
list?
Yes, and I submitted comments on them because there were a couple that weren't, that should have been.
Huh, okay. Well, I'll go back and talk to them about Westside overall. I think if you've started the process, you
Mhm.
should be okay. It's the
That's
ones
what I
that are
read
just
in-
like ignoring it
Right.
and not listening and not responding to DWR at all.
Okay.
We're monitoring everything that's on the monitor.
So you have all the information when you go back? Napa County's been working with Aaron on it, and for our portion in the west side, I think those basins are below priority.
Okay,
So that's probably where we're not on the list. And then as far as the Napa River goes, we were conditionally recognized, and we're working on solving the issue there.
okay. And then I know YOLO status, so.
Yeah, we're in ME also for YOLO.
Yeah.
Can I explain one thing about the PSP that took me to read
Yes.
throughs to understand? So there's the applicant, which is going to be a single fiscal entity for the entire Westside region. They have to have their ME status proper, and CASGEM status proper, and then there's project proponents. Those are the other agencies that will actually do the project. So there's a two-layer, two-step process. The project components also have to have their CASGEM and other statuses.
That's kind of what I was asking, because it could be, you may be the fiscal agent sending in the application, but if there's a project in Solano County and we don't have an ME for Solano County, that project wouldn't be eligible.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'll talk
Well,
to
if
Aaron.
the fiscal agent, what if, say, instead of YOLO Flood being the fiscal agent, the city of Woodland was the fiscal agent? They aren't an ME, but you are.
They're covered geographically.
They're still covered.
Yeah.
As long as
okay.
the county-
Within the county, yeah.
It was just the verbiage you
Yeah.
used that sounded a little
Yeah,
bit confusing.
and I misstated, YOLO County Flood Control is not the ME, it's the YOLO Water Resources Association.
Oh, okay.
Which is the ME.
And then the CASGEM prioritization maps, which will finally be finalized and say what the actual high and medium priority basins. Those should be out in the really near future. As soon as I have word of it, I will send information to the group.
Kristen?
Yeah,
So, I had a meeting with Mary Scruggs recently, and she said the same thing. They're working on it, and they're
Yeah.
gonna get it
Yeah.
out very soon.
keep hearing, soon, soon.
Yeah. I've heard that for 2 years.
The main revisions within these set of guidelines and PSPs is that you have to address one of the 11 IRWM project elements, which is standard before, in addition to the drought conditions in SB 104, and that's the language I had passed on to you. So I can quickly actually go over that. Let's
Yeah,
just-
would you please?
Yes.
Is that the 4 bullet points?
Yes, it's the 4 bullet points, and it's on page 8 of the PSP, if anybody happens to have theirs. So, here it says the eligible projects must be consistent with an adopted IRWM plan. This is another difference, because normally, we would want it to be within the IRWM plan, but since we're trying to move on such a fast schedule, we don't want to, make it difficult for you guys. So as long as the project that is being submitted is consistent with the IRWM plan, and you can justify that, saying it goes along with the goals and objectives of the plan, then it's eligible. So the first bullet item here is it provides immediate regional drought preparedness, which is pretty vague. So they gave a little bit more description within table 1 of the guidelines that talks about the statewide priority of drought preparedness. So here it says proposals that contain projects that effectively address long-term drought preparedness by contributing to sustainable water supply and reliability during water shortages. They don't include drought emergency response actions, such as trucking of water or lowering well intakes. Desirable proposals will achieve one or more of the following. They'll promote water conservation, conjunctive use, reuse, and recycling. They'll improve landscape and agricultural irrigation efficiencies. They'll achieve long-term reduction of water use. They will provide efficient groundwater basin management, and they'll establish system interties.
All of those or just one?
Just one of the following, or more, but at least one, yeah. And then the other bullets are increase local water supply reliability and delivery of safe drinking water, assist water suppliers and regions to implement conservation programs and measures that are not locally cost effective. So a lot of, the reason for that is a lot of cities and counties like to promote conservation programs. And for the state to be able to say that, yes, that's a great project, we need to know it's not locally cost effective. So if you've had a plan to do this conservation measure for a long time, and now you're like, oh, there's state funding, let's take advantage of it, we need to see that it's not locally cost effective for you to have already done that. And then reduce water quality conflicts or ecosystem conflicts treated by the drought. And again, these are on page 8 of the PSP. And I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody reads through them and still is a little unsure of whether or not their project would be eligible.
The department's gonna be putting on some workshops.
Yes, and I can tell you that now. So this set of PSP and guidelines, you have until March 15th to provide comments, and I would highly recommend doing that because the department.
May 15th?
May 15th.
Not March, you said March.
Oh, sorry, May 15th.
I was gonna say,
I don't know
that
why I
must
get those
be
two
April.
confused all the time. May
It's all right.
15th.
I know they have to do it quickly, but
Yeah.
we can't comment before we see them.
Yeah, and there will be 3 different public workshops. The one closest to this area will be in Sacramento on May 12th. And that will also be webcast, so if you can't make it to Sacramento, those are really easy to access, and that's on the Cal EPA website, which you can get through the DWR website. So back to the PSP discussion, the reimbursement can be claimed back to when the drought was declared, so that's January 17th of this year. Cost share reimbursement can go back to January 1st of 2010. A big change within the application process is DWR really wanted to make it easier and more streamlined. So the number of words per project has been limited. We aren't going to require a work plan until you actually have conditionally been granted the award, which is another thing we were hoping to kind of streamline things a bit, just to provide a summary of the work that's going to happen. Let's see. The eligibility criterion used to be split up into a bunch of different attachments. Now it's just in one, which will hopefully help things. And of course, within the application, you're going to need to discuss the drought issues and discuss how the proposed projects will be helping that. And then the last thing is, there is $200 million that is for this round. However, the way it's written in the PSP is it lets you know what's remaining for the next 2 solicitations. And it doesn't necessarily say what will be available per funding area for this round. It's going to greatly depend on what's actually submitted, because we need to spend $200 million on drought projects, but we're not sure what's going to come to the table just yet. So something that the department is highly encouraging groups to do is to meet with other IRWM groups within their funding area and to have an honest conversation about who really needs the drought funding and who's going to, you know, take one for the team and maybe go the next round, or just prioritize within the funding area because there is only a limited amount of funding. So for the Sacramento River area, there is $40 million left for these next 2 rounds. And the schedule, we're anticipating that the final guidelines and PSPs will be out in June. I'm guessing it would take us about 3 to 4 weeks to turn them around from the final comment period. So May 15th is when comments are due. It may be middle of June. I mean, early June would be very, I'd be expecting a lot, I think. And then there's going to be applicant workshops right after the final guidelines and PSPs to help you learn how to write your applications, or if you have questions with regards to IRWM, the grant website. And then the grant applications need to be submitted to grants, and this is going to be July instead of August. And based on the final date of the guidelines and the PSPs, it'll be exactly 30 days after that. So if it were, say, the middle of June, it'd be the middle of July. And then conditional grant awards will be announced in September. Does anybody have any questions?
I want to say for some reason that I didn't see a cost benefits analysis in the PSP, but I may just
Well, I know
wishful thinking.
there's a benefits discussion for sure, which
Is
is,
that Max? This is Sashi.
Go ahead, Sashi.
Yeah, and just what I gathered from looking at it and kind of the difference between like round 2 and this is that you need to do a very good job of articulating and quantifying to the extent possible the physical benefits of the project. And the difference here is that you don't have to do as much of the monetization, and by monetizing your benefits, you don't actually have to get to the actual, dollar value of your benefits. So you're right, it doesn't look like there's a specific cost-benefit analysis. That said, they do ask that there's some questions about alternatives to the action that you're taking, and whether it is the least cost alternative. And if not, then you have to justify, what are the other reasons that you might have pursued an alternative that was not the least cost. So there is a difference, I think, and that's we're kind of getting our head wrapped around, what does this mean in terms of effort and putting together the application. But the fact that you quantify but don't monetize, I think, makes it a little bit easier on putting the application together.
Just for everyone's edification, that was probably the most difficult part of the grant application that we submitted last March. It was a lot of work. So if it's streamlined, that will help everyone, I think.
Yeah, I think it tries to focus more on really discussing the physical benefits, and like Sashi said, talking about whether or not it's the least cost alternative. The scoring criteria and standards on page 27 and 28 of the PSP, and that's probably the best thing to familiarize yourself with, just to kind of do a check with the project that you have already established somewhere or in your head, just to see what it actually meets within the scoring criteria and standards. Like I said, the human right to water, they give an additional 3 points for proposals that address that. And then, obviously, if the proposal clearly identifies the regional water management impacts from the drought or any anticipated impacts in the drought, that's 5 points. So the biggest weight of them will be on whether or not it's a drought-related project. And then this, it doesn't pertain to this group necessarily, but they're anticipating that plans will need to be adopted 45 days after the final application, or after the final guidelines date.
Adopted by the local regional water management groups or adopted by the water department?
Specific
After the
agency.
application due date, sorry. They need to be adopted by the, if you have a project proponent, they need to be adopted by them. Yes.
Right. We've made that abundantly clear for everyone.
Yes.
Any questions on table 9?
Yes.
Scoring.
Get it out of there, right?
Question number, so it's divided into 2 sections. So there's proposal level evaluation, which is the package, and then project level evaluation.
Yes.
So each individual project gets scored, and then all those scores are averaged for the total score, which is logical. But question 2, proposal level, the whole thing, it says, did the project proponent identify the mandatory or voluntary water conservation restrictions that have been implemented due to the drought? The project proponent is in the project level evaluation, and the applicant is part of the proposal level. I just didn't quite get that.
Right, but I think even at the proposal level, the department still wants to see, based on every project that's submitted, everybody's doing their part to ensure water conservation, just because on the, the state level, we have to ensure that everyone is already reducing by 20%.
So let's say we have 7 projects,
Right.
and that section describing it would be the same, maybe just repeat it 7 times, or?
But it would be, I guess,
Yeah,
it'll
don't know.
depend on what it looks like in the actual application. I understand your question.
Okay.
But it'll likely, that will look different for each project proponent. Unless you're saying there's gonna be multiple project proponents within one city that's already doing a certain set of restrictions or conservation measures.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what comes
Yeah,
up.
sorry.
Okay. Yeah, it's just, I know it's draft, so that's fine.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Kristen.
Yes.
Okay, so that plays directly into agenda item number 5, the drought solicitation. We had talked about this at our last meeting. Again, the department is looking for these projects that will directly relate to some type of drought preparedness, conservation, conjunctive use. And so what I'd asked all the coordinating committee members to do, and I did myself, is go back and look at all the projects that we have submitted to date and look at the potential projects that we have on our list that would fit this description. And I found 2. We have a lot of projects that are doing a really lot of good things, but not very many of them address drought preparedness directly. The 2 that came that seemed, to be honest with you, it's really 1.5. The one that we submitted jointly with NAPA was a regional collaborative water use efficiency program, looking at water conservation, looking at better use. That seems like a no-brainer. That seems like something that would help for drought preparedness. And then the other one, which is might be a stretch, the Woodland Davis Clean Water Agency, they've got their Sac River Joint intake project, and that one could be couched as a conjunctive use project, which is certainly would fall into line for drought preparedness. But that we really have to look at the project description to see if it really was a conjunctive use project. But those are the only 2 that jumped out to me, and I was hoping, and I heard from some of the other stakeholders that they would be submitting some drought preparedness projects, and I haven't seen anything. So if anyone has anything, this would be the time to get them in. These grant applications are really, really hard to do, and I really want to make sure that we do it wisely. I don't know if submitting 2 projects is the wise thing to do. It may very well be. It may come to the point where we get no money at all for the West Side, so we may have to submit a grant application just for 2 projects, just to make sure that we have a chance to get some money for this region for some of these projects. But I'd like to throw it open to everyone to see if they've got any other thoughts on some other projects that would potentially be eligible for this funding, and just general thoughts on just 2 projects being submitted for a grant application. And keep in mind that this has to be turned around rapidly. Kristen just said, in all likelihood, the grant applications will probably be due July 15th. So that's not a lot of time. And if they need to be turned in by July 15th, we need to have a very well thought out project, probably 2 weeks from now. So I mean, I'm just trying to be honest with you guys, because it is a lot of work to get this information, to get it into all the different boxes. Who just did their taxes? I just did my taxes. I know, I waited forever, but there's so many boxes you got to fill out. Same thing for these grant applications, and it's times 10. There's so many different little things, and this is even the streamline effort. So it's a lot of work, and we have to make sure that we have the right information for these projects. So we need to keep that in mind for this discussion. Do we have some real projects that are ready to go with strong project proponents that will meet the requirements that the department is looking for this funding? And I see maybe 1.5 projects.
Well, what's
Hey,
the
Chris,
dollar
this is
amount?
Betsy. The one thing that Kristen had pointed out on the water use efficiency is they have to be locally not cost effective. So
Right.
for those kind of types of water use efficiency measures, has there been a cost effectiveness analysis done in the region for any of those?
Probably not.
So that's kind of a minimum threshold that you
Yeah.
have to, understand what might, how you might frame a water use efficiency program and, pull up those things that are not locally cost effective.
Yeah, so for the project that I'm thinking of, the one that we put together with NAPA, those are generally cost-efficient methods that we do now. It would just be an extension of the existing programs on a regional basis. So that may not very well be eligible as it is. I'd have to look at that much more closely.
And Chris, the list you reviewed isn't the whole plan. You just looked at the 10 projects that we submitted last year.
No, I looked at everything.
Well, because there's certainly other conjunctive use projects.
Well, that's why I'm asking, because when I look at it, I'd have to look at it much closer, but I know you guys had a conjunctive use project in there.
Yeah.
But I didn't look at it close enough. I didn't have a project description that gave me enough information to tell me that that would be a project that could be submitted. So that's why I wanted to have this discussion. Are there other projects that we have on the list that would certainly fit what the department's looking for?
Hey Chris, City of Woodland, we're thinking about 2 projects. to submit for the drought round of grant funding. One of them being aquifer storage and recovery. We've recently completed one aquifer storage and recovery while finishing up feasibility testing to prove that the aquifer storage does actually work. And it looks very, very positive. The report's pretty much done and it worked very well. So what we're looking to do is a new ASR well and then retrofit 2 other municipal wells to ASR capable. So the purpose of that is we inject river water into the ground all winter long and then pump it back out during the drought. And that's one grant application. The other one is recycled water. We've recently completed a feasibility study for recycled water for the city. Have met with a couple large industrial users and they're ready to sign up for it. We've already got an environmental clearance for the pipelines. So basically ready to go with design and construction on that one. Both of them probably, the ASR well probably around $3.5 million total project, and then the recycled water around $4 million. And total project
Something else
cost.
to add, this is Jeff and Napa.
Go ahead, Jeff.
2 points I want to make. The water use efficiency, I think being not cost effective. A lot of the folks that are on groundwater, also relates to the aquifer project, maybe we can do something regarding groundwater, is, they're not ratepayers. So if we give them conservation devices, I think that'll be cost effective, just in a nutshell. So it would be expanding a conservation program for those users really to conserve the groundwater. Could be a possibility. And then as far as Napa County, we do need a groundwater monitoring well in our Pope Valley area, which is in the Westside region, to comply with CADCHM fully. So that would be, I don't know if that would fit, maybe Kristen could talk to that applicability, but that would be something we would be interested in if it worked.
Groundwater monitoring.
It's solely for monitoring.
It's just a monitoring well, right?
Yeah. I would say that likely would not be eligible. But I can look into it a little bit more and let you know.
Okay.
Jeff, I think if you can tie it to being somehow assisting or helping to increase local water supply reliability, that, do the other threshold.
Well, in the long run, it would be, right? I mean, because the ground with the aquifers and
And you know what your yield would be.
keep mind, we want to always fund local regulations to protect it.
Right, so is it currently an overdrafted basin?
It is have, I guess, anecdotal evidence of being limited, but we don't know much about it, and that's why we need a well out there. But there are, property owners that sort of express concern.
Is there actually a groundwater management plan for it?
No.
Okay, because I think that's another threshold item, if I remember.
GMPs are.
EWR groundwater basin now.
It is.
Okay, because I think that it has to, the right section.
I think it does. City of Woodland's got urban water management plan in place, right?
Yes,
And groundwater.
Requirement.
It'll be tough when there's not many of those around.
Yeah. So if you look on page 18 of the PSP, the both the groundwater users, for groundwater projects or other projects that directly affect groundwater levels and quality, the applicant or participating agency responsible must provide the following. So, and then the third bullet, each listed agency must be self-certified compliance with Water Code 10753 regarding groundwater management plan. So I think that's kind of a threshold item that you have to be able to demonstrate compliance with.
You have to have a groundwater management.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I make a theme comment? that
Sure,
I'm hearing?
sure.
So I'm on the Aqua Groundwater Committee, and I hear all these different drought committees I'm part of, and it's coming up here right now. In California, typically 30 to 40% in an average year of our water use comes from groundwater, but during drought it goes up to 60% or more. Like in Western Yolo County, it's going to be 100% this year because there's not going to be any surface water from Lake County. I think the same thing happens in a lot of counties. The ASR project is one. So what's happening is, at least in our area, is it's not really a drought. Well, we can reframe it and not call it a drought year, but call it like a year of groundwater, and where we can focus on these projects, conjunctive use, maybe monitoring, maybe not, but ASR. The district would like to, we lose 25% of our groundwater, of our surface water on purpose through our unlined canals to recharge the groundwater. The missing part of that equation is the recovery part. People kind of benefit just for free. Well, we'd like to put in a project to put in 10 wells, let's say, which might be a $2 or $2.5 million project. But I think if we have this theme as a group of we are all concerned about our groundwater, and we have a plan to optimize how it's used, and to with various projects, and kind of have it all in a package. Our previous submittal from last year was kind of a kitchen sink thing where everyone threw in their projects, and they were all great projects, and for other reasons it didn't score high enough to get funding. But I think this year we have an opportunity with the drought. I mean, it's a disaster in a lot of different cases, but it's also an opportunity to start implementing some of these groundwater programs that we've been talking about for decades, and for the district, kind of the time is right for putting in some wells, we think, and I think and it sounds like there's a lot of other projects too, perhaps up in Lake County also with well management, I don't know. But that's my proposal is that we should all kind of have this theme. I don't know if anyone has any comments on that.
I have a quick comment. My question, you specified 10 wells. Are you talking drafting wells or injection wells?
Production wells, yeah, pulling out. Okay. So let's say we deliver 200,000 acre feet of water from the stream. About 50,000 of that goes into the ground, but when it comes back out, it's just individual pumpers. It's not managed in any way, and so we would like to start managing both sides of the recharge recovery equation.
Okay, but what is the recharge recovery?
We would pump water back out of the ground and sell it to water customers.
How are you going to get it in there in the first place? You're going to draft all year this year. You're not getting anything out of the lake.
That's right.
Okay.
Get it from the river?
So how are you going to recharge what you're going to take out this year?
Well, that wouldn't happen this year. It'd be over many years' time scale. Where currently under Yolo County, the estimated size of the aquifer is about 13 million acre feet. So that's quite a bit more than what is consumed in a typical year. For all of Yolo County, which the district is half, it's about 1 million acre feet per year is consumed. About 5% in municipal and industrial, about 95% in ag. And so the aquifer goes up and down naturally, where it gets pumped down during the summer and comes back up during the winter. During droughts, like the '77 drought, the water levels in groundwater got as low as they ever have, but then they recovered a couple years later. Same in 1991, where they went down, and we want to manage that up and down in order to.
Essentially, my question is, what makes you think that it's going to come back up next year? What evidence do you have of that?
It might not come next year,
okay,
but over time, over the next few years.
So really, a drought-related project wouldn't be so much pulling the water out, your ability to pull the water out. It would be the ability to make sure that water is going to be there.
Exactly. There's a lot of details that we probably won't go into here, but one of the options is reoperations of Indian Valley Reservoir by keeping some water up there and pumping from that, or by some people call it exercising the aquifer more. One of the issues in Yolo County, the water level is so high, there's not enough space. So if you draw it down a little bit more every year, you're increasing the size of your storage by exercising the aquifer more. And we've got all kinds of studies on our website if you want to look into that.
You just don't want to become San Jose or Manteca where you lower the ground level.
Exactly, and in fact, Yolo County, the WRA, we want to do another round of subsidence monitoring too, which is another part of it. The collapsing land surface.
What about the concept of building another storage facility?
Well, not likely.
Not that amount of money available here.
I'm just.
But statewide.
Kristen's got a checkbook somewhere.
I mean, sites.
There'd be a whole water bond into
How
itself.
many billion?
Yeah, I mean,
Sites
sites
is
is prob-
3.5.
Yeah, that's probably the next one, and that probably wouldn't directly affect our region, except for.
Except for water manage, the ability to water manage.
Well, we wouldn't directly get any of that water most likely, but it would help improve conditions in the delta for environmental flows, and that might relieve some of our pressure. It's not exactly clear how it would benefit our region.
I like the idea of having a nice story about, you know, groundwater issue, and I think it's a priority in our plan.
No, it's a good,
Very good, make it-
very good idea.
Make it so.
I like it.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's,
Jeff, I would echo that as well, because I think it's easier to
Take the key on
tackle
it.
things if you have kind of a central theme that you are building the story around, and about, you know, how the project integrates across the region and things like that. So I would support that.
There's another item in our plan about well abandonment measures. That's in a long term, I mean, people look at these response thing as more of a short term thing. I think it's someone's smiling. More of a long term issue, and you know, that's groundwater security, and
Yeah.
that has something to do with all those abandonment issues.
yeah, that'd be another management tool we could use. Yeah, you had a project there for that.
Yeah, property destroying abandoned wells. I think I would prefer to wait until the next round to address that, because when water quality gets mixed up,
Yeah.
it gets, people get confused.
I think that would be a stretch for the drought preparedness.
Uh,
Well, it's a good project, but I think it would be a real stretch for drought preparedness.
Unless the water quality is becoming more impaired from the drought in those wells.
Not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
Maybe some wells.
Are any of those convertible? Can you convert them to an injection well? An old draft well? Not necessarily
depends
high
on
volume,
the-
but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can, depends on how the wall's screened and what condition the casing is in. For our current ESR well, that casing is set up that it's welded completely closed, so it could pressurize. We could actually pressurize the casing if we had to. Because we weren't sure when we injected water and exactly what happened, but the water level only came up 50 feet, I think. It came up to 50 feet, it came up about 20 feet up. Because all the time we were putting 1,000 gallons per minute into the water. So that's worked really well. It's a lot of capacity.
Okay. Well, I mean, you know, that's something, in terms of the abandonment project, we ought to look at that, because if you have, you know, if you have an 8-inch, as an example, just as an example, if you have an 8-inch and it's only got a 25-foot cap on it on the top, you could drop a 6-inch line down it and, you know, cap all the way to the existing water level for your ability to pressurize. So, you know, rather than cap off wells that might work to help us recharge.
You had a question?
Yes, I'd like to know if we could qualify to get money to do a vulnerability analysis of our groundwater basins for health and safety reasons, among other things.
You're talking water quality vulnerability?
I'm talking about supply.
Water quantity, supply.
Since agriculture
Supply,
dominates
yes.
the use of the groundwater and we are domestically dependent upon that groundwater in many areas of the county,
You already have a groundwater monitoring program, huh?
a vulnerability analysis is not the same.
Typically, they're part and parcel.
Yeah, we just completed our spring groundwater measurements in our, I think it's 6 groundwater basins in the county. And we're actually doing pretty well. That information is on the Water Resources website. It's drought information at the front of the page. We measured in the end of January and things were looking pretty grim.
And they came back up a little bit?
They came up quite a bit.
Yeah, two good storms come through.
We're blessed with small groundwater basins, but when you get multiple dry years, you're cursed with small groundwater basins. But ours actually recovered pretty well. Most of them are probably within 3 foot of full. Except some of them, like High Valley, which is lower than that, but it's higher than the levels it ran in the 60s when there was more intensive groundwater use up there. So it kind of depends, but generally speaking, our groundwater in Lake County right now is looking pretty good. based on measurements in last week of March, first week of April.
Does that include the CSAs for water systems?
We measure the groundwater basins, we measure Scotts Valley, we measure the Upper Lake Valley and Bachelor Valley, Big Valley, Calliope Valley, Coyote Valley. We've got one well in Burns Valley, which used to be a lot of irrigation and not so much anymore, and High Valley. Those are our groundwater basins we monitor, however many that was. I kind of lost track on the counting fingers. But that's what we monitor. And for those groundwater basins, that's kind of where things are looking. The county does have some issues with some of the other water systems, particularly in the Cobb area, the Paradise Valley subdivision. I know they do have some systems that do have some serious issues with low groundwater, and some of those systems struggle in a normal year. They just have limited supply. So there are some issues, but our major aquifers, which is about 87% of our groundwater use in the county, are looking pretty good, given the conditions.
My
That's
concerns
it.
are the subsidence in Scotts Valley that already exists, the subsidence on Hendricks Creek that already exists, and the proliferation of groundwater usage by new vineyards for which there is no calculation of what that's going to do to those supplies. I mean, we have this changing situation here developmentally here, and the groundwater basin, the groundwater management plan, I don't think really talks about new growth and limitations that we have already, as opposed to just a drought. So if you add a drought, we may, it seems to me like we got to be kind of looking at, should we be doing something more for groundwater management than just saying it's okay?
Are there ideas for groundwater development type projects in the county?
We did have the Adobe Creek conjunctive use, and we've only got one side of the conjunctive use. We're very similar to where you are. It was a project to modify the Highland Creek Reservoir to store additional water for groundwater recharge in the summer. And it was about 10% of the groundwater use in that portion of the groundwater basin. It was what we thought was very cost-effective water when the project was put together around 2000. The cost for water was about $50 an acre foot. It went to a vote, a benefit assessment vote in 2005, and it got about 10% support. So, and we have not completed CEQA on it. We'd have to start all over with CEQA. We haven't done the water availability analysis for it to their traditional water rights satisfaction. So it's not really a ready-to-go project. And we don't have the long-term support of the users there.
Right.
And it also helps with the ecosystem conflicts because there was actually 200 acre-feet of water to be released in the spring for supplemental flows for fish migration, which was a real issue this year because the creek dried up in the middle of the hitch migration. And we would have had some water to release for that. We could have done that and supplement, as is Fish and Wildlife rescued, I think, around 450 fish. They moved them from Adobe Creek over to Kelsey Creek. And then we got the late March rains and promptly washed them and the rains back into the lake. So, you know.
We try, right? We try.
E for effort.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we have some good projects that we can put forward there. For the ones you just mentioned for the city of Woodland, we need to see those really quickly. So there's information on how to submit projects on the website. Contact me directly if you're having any questions.
Okay.
The city has to adopt the plan.
It's under our city council for tomorrow night.
Excellent. Okay.
That's quick enough.
Okay.
sounds
Mr.
like.
Sarchi, a quick question. In the woodland area, is there an adopted groundwater management plan as well?
Yes, there is.
Okay, great.
It's a good one too.
Did you write it?
No. I copied it for ours.
I have a question for you, Christian, on I don't recall seeing it in the PSP or the guidelines, but it may be there. Grant administration, is that any part of this?
Said limit it to 5%.
Is that what it was,
Yeah, I'm pretty
That's what I
5%?
saw when I read the PSP, try to keep
Yeah.
it below 5%.
And generally, that's how the legislation is written, so it's the same
Yeah.
through all
I think that's
solicitations.
what the planning grant was in the
Yeah.
last implementation
Seems,
grant.
Oh, wait, what's the CEQA streamlining part? Are you familiar with that?
That's a good
I'll
question.
mention CEQA, and I think there's some special rules.
Sashi, do you know about CEQA? For this round?
It is, whether it can be funded or not, is that the question?
If it's been streamlined for this, like can't remember exactly what.
Well, it depends on the type of project, because the governor did declare grant.
That's definitely a requirement.
Right.
I don't know that you can, you know, I would say that if the project has completed CEQA, then it is more ready to proceed.
Yeah, there is a point that's awarded if the tasks and the scope of work include the appropriate deliverables, like CEQA documents, plans and specs, all that stuff.
I'm looking to see how it's described in the schedule, so, okay. So if you look at page 24 under project schedule, proposals that contain projects or programs which are not ready to proceed to construction implementation on or before April 1st, 2015 will not be able to achieve a perfect score for the schedule scoring criteria. So if your schedule drags out so that you are starting your construction implementation after April of 2015, then you just can't get full points. So my guess is that, and the schedule accounts for how many points?
It's awarded by then.
So as Kristen pointed out, you know, this table 9 on the scoring, this is where, now on the, so let me see, there's a schedule item 5. Yeah, so for example, item 27 is you won't get that point if you can't demonstrate that the project's going to start by April 1st. So if you figure you have like a year and a half of CEQA, then it's not a good fit for this, you know, for this solicitation, I would say. Or if you can crank and get it done beforehand and you have a schedule that demonstrates that you will be done with CEQA by, so that you can, you know, remember to do construction implementation. Kristen, maybe this is a clarification or the group needs to submit. Does that mean have a notice to proceed to the contractor, or the contractor is actually starting to do work?
I think it
It said in there you had to bid it.
Has to be-
Timeline,
has to be
you're gonna have
awarded.
back
Has
into
to
your
be bid.
schedule
Yeah.
To make sure that you can satisfy the construction implementation start date of April 1st, 2015.
Yeah, and it says ready to proceed means that the bids have been awarded by the specified date. Yeah,
Okay, so bid award.
I have a question for Kristen, excuse me. September is when the grant letters go out. How soon does the grant money become available or awarded? Because if you want to bid it and so forth by April 15th, first, it gives you very little time if you're going to wait to start.
Well, the state doesn't take long to process.
not at all.
What is all that? What's the anticipation?
Where's that?
You have within, I want to say 30 days to submit the work plan to the department. Maybe that's 2 weeks. Given that, it seems like the department would be working obviously as expeditiously as possible, but it would likely take, oh man, I think they'd really like for it to take not longer than 3 months to get the grants actually executed. But I don't hold me to that, because obviously this September deadline is just in here as an anticipated date, and it would really just depend on the condition of the work plan, budget, and schedule when you give it to the grant manager, and how many iterations need to go back and forth. The
And
department,
recognize that if you have multiple project proponents, so let's say you have 2 or 3 projects and there might be one fiscal agent that has one project, but there's 2 others, then the fiscal agent will want to have a sub-agreement with each of the other project proponents to make sure that, there's a clear path for payments and invoices and things like that. So even though the fiscal agent has an agreement with the DWR, and you can probably do some of these things in parallel, but just recognize that there's other steps in there from a grant administration perspective that you'll want to account for in the schedule. Just whether you show it on this schedule or not, you need to know that those steps have to occur.
That's a good segue. So when we finalize this plan and we put together an MOU for these regional water management groups, the water agency volunteered to be the fiscal agent for any upcoming grants. And due to drought conditions, some of the regional water management groups have come under some very dire fiscal straits. And one way that we may be able to help out some of our partners is through some of this funding from grant administration, albeit very small. So one of the ideas we thought is that YOLO Flood might take on the responsibility of this grant application to help keep some of their staff working. Now, hearing all of this, do you still wish to do that?
Well, we were hoping you would do all the work and we would get the.
Oh,
No, so I think as everyone here knows, the district gets income from selling water and there's no water available, so we have no income. And we're starting 10% furloughs in a couple weeks. 3 staff members, seasonal members aren't coming back. And so we're in severe budget crisis right now. Due to the plan, for the implementation grant last year, the past couple of years, the district was the fiscal entity. We're going to pass that responsibility on to Solano, and that was great with us. Now there's 2 things happening. One is the monitoring entity CASGEM question, which is how the conversation between me and Chris started. He's like, hey, do you guys, if we're not eligible, do you want to keep doing it? And I was like, well, that
since you guys are.
Yeah, and we do have our CASGEM ME qualified. And it was like, well, that might be good for us anyway. So that's kind of what I think is what we're hoping is Chris's leadership in the organization of the CC would still continue. Sure. And that I think you have a contract right now with RCD and with the KJ, and so that would still continue. But in terms of fiscal agent and any admin costs that we could get reimbursed from that would help us not lay off all of our staff next year if we don't have rain.
And the water agency does not have a problem with that at all. I just wanted to let the rest of the coordinating committee know and make sure they were okay with that. Seems like a no-brainer to me.
It's fine with us. Hate to see anybody lose their job.
That's a tough situation in a lot of places right now. Okay. That was the good news.
Thanks for bringing us down.
So we will continue to get new information from the department and continue to look at the PSP and guidelines and look for updates on our website as far as the fact sheets and what we're actually asking for project proponents to submit. For those of you that have talked today about projects you have in the queue, please submit them yesterday. Okay. I mean, we need to see the stuff right away to make sure that we do have some projects that are ready to proceed so that we can put together a strong grant application. And I think Max had a fantastic idea to couch this under the whole guise of, yeah, we need to really look at our groundwater and see how that fits for all of us for the drought situation we are now and then forever at this point forward, because as the department has started looking at these groundwater basins, we all need to do a much better job at managing them and just figuring out what exactly we have there so we can get some sustainable yield there when it's a good time to do it. So I think it's a fantastic idea and it's a good story to tell, and we have a good story to tell. We just need to put it all together. So we need to do it quickly. So please submit those projects as soon as possible.
Okay.
Adopt your plan. Adopt the plan. You know, I'm glad you got that in queue. But though, for anyone else that's listening and anticipates submitting a project for a grant, you know, you need to adopt the IRWP. Otherwise, you won't be eligible. And there's a whole other bunch of things you need to have in place too. And hopefully, the information we've provided gives you all of that, what needs to be done. If not, give me a call directly, or give Kristen a call. She'll be happy to answer those questions.
One
Did
more
our
comment.
plan get approved by DWR?
She's reading it.
It's, yeah, still being reviewed.
Reading it?
Yeah.
Still reading, okay.
A comment for Tom and the other Lake County folks. In the PSP, there was a specific call out for intertie projects. Is it possible? I don't know, with having lots of smaller rural water districts, if there's a benefit to having an intertie, I don't know. I don't know the plumbing, but that might be a project.
There are some areas where that does make sense, and I know in particular the water district in my spare time that I'm president of, a water company, has been pushed by the state to intertie with the adjacent one for the emergency intertie, and it hit resistance, and a lot of it comes down to politics and independence, but in a lot of cases our water systems, they're separate water systems because there's 3 or 4 miles between them, and for small systems with 500 connections, that's pretty expensive. So there's a lot of reasons we have small, but we've got a lot of little ones right together.
That meets the not efficient, not a cost-effective criteria, I guess.
Yeah, well, that many small water systems isn't cost effective.
Anyway, I just threw that because I saw it in the PSP.
Right, I didn't, I just say.
One other one I can see in our your west side or our east side is the relocation of surface water intake. There was something that said earlier about maybe that may not qualify, but it would be relocating a surface water intake that may go high and dry if various levels fall greatly during the drought.
That'd be a water supply. That would qualify, wouldn't it?
Sounds like it.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Read the eligible project types and read.
And by the way, don't take any more
Page
Barry
11.
Assa water.
Well, we have to, but if the lake continues to drop, one of the intakes for subdivision around the lake would be sucking air.
Yeah, that's not good.
I don't know
Yeah,
if they,
there's an interesting question about that, because when you go to the table 1 of the guidelines, and they talk about drought preparedness, they do say, drought preparedness projects do not include drought emergency response actions such as trucking of water or lowering well intake.
yeah, I don't see how that's different than lowering a well
That's
intake.
no.
It may be something
Yeah.
that's necessary as much as you
Yeah, a
may
long-term
dislike
project.
it.
Yeah,
but-
that would be for this solicitation, yeah.
but
Yeah,
I'm
something to
not
put for the
qualifying.
the 2015 solicitation, Jeff.
Yeah, that's kind of why it didn't seem like it would fit quite right.
So
Thank you.
just for everyone.
And I would certainly have you all think about, kind of both the individual projects, but the collective. You want to come out with as strong a package as possible.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, because each project does get, kind of judged on its own merits as well as kind of the cumulative, and going back to, I think, Max and Jeff, kind of your idea of telling a good story around this, if you have kind of an outlier project, which is a okay fit but not a great fit, you might really think about, keeping it to the projects that are really a really good fit that you can package well. And then the other discussion that we've had with Chris is because of the really quick turnaround time on this, that, this is, I would not advise you to have a proposal that has, 7 or 8 projects in there, because you're just not going to have enough time to do a good job to either both address the individual project as well as packaging it well together. So, our advice to Chris was, try to keep this to like 2 to 3 projects max.
Yeah, I think that's what we're gonna have.
At the PSP, I don't think you have more than 30 days to put this together.
Yeah.
Well, should you even, this is Tim Williams, should you even wait and should you start now? Or when are you going to decide on which project, I guess, as a group? And so you could start before the guidelines and applications are complete would be my recommendation.
Well, after today's discussion, I have 0 projects right now that I think that are, honestly, that are on the table. But, if a few that are gonna be coming in, that makes sense, and with contribute to this regional issue that we have, then yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to put 2 or 3 projects together. But after having the discussion and hearing a little bit more, I don't think we have any projects right now that would probably go forward at this point with the information I have, that I've seen.
We'll be submitting very soon.
Very soon.
Yes.
Tomorrow.
Just talk to Tim.
Well, let's really put our cards on the table here, Sachi. So just to let everyone know, we are going to be contracting with Kennedy Jenks to put this grant application together because they have the resources to do it. They have the people, they have the skill, they've done it in the past, they've been very successful. They have the inside knowledge of writing this plan. So it makes absolute sense to have them on board to do this grant application. So Sachi, putting all our cards on the table, what would be a drop dead date that you would actually need to start seeing these projects come in?
Well, I'll think about this. So from what Kristen was saying, we're likely to see a application due date of probably middle of July.
But worst case, we should say July 1st.
Right, worst case is July.
Optimistic.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the final
Optimistic.
it comes out June 1st. And the comments don't come in like, we need more than 30 days, because that's the other kind of comment that you can submit on this. So looking back in from a July 1st due date, and my supposition is, Chris, that you'll need to have kind of a coordinating committee concurrence that, yes, these are the projects we're going to go with. You'll have a fiscal agent, all the project programs are lined up, kind of everybody knows what's going on. And, if we had 6 weeks, but in the next couple, 2 weeks, it makes a huge difference. The things that I could foresee changing in the guidelines, and I'm right now totally looking in the crystal ball, it really depends on the kinds of comments that come in, are probably date related, probably more than content related. Because no one's going to come in and say, ooh, I want a monetized benefit cost analysis. No one's coming in to say that. So if we're at April 15th right now, I mean, I think you need to have a pretty good idea by, let's say, within the month, if not a little earlier, about what, everyone's kind of on board and going to be marching forward with, putting this grant application together. Because we can do, a lot of this basic data gathering and calls and things like that. It's easier to front load those and make some adjustments based on the final TSD than to start on June 1st, let's say.
Right. Okay, so what I would suggest is that we put a deadline of April 25th for any projects to be submitted specifically for this drought solicitation. The coordinating committee would meet May 29th to make a decision if we have projects that are ready to proceed to submit for a grant application, and that would allow you to start on May 1st. How's that sound? Does that give you enough time? Oh, June 1st. No.
May 29th, you're going to meet
No, we would.
April 29th.
for approval.
April, I'm sorry, yeah.
He said May, May.
Okay.
Yeah, I meant May 1st you would start. So April 29th, the coordinating committee would meet, and we would have a decision amongst ourselves if we had enough projects that were ready to proceed, that made sense to put together a strong application, and that means your team would proceed starting May 1st.
Wow.
Does that pass the giggle test?
2 weeks.
I think I would give people till the 28th to submit projects, given that weekend if they need to. Although, I don't know, for any that are going to qualify.
Well, today's the 15th. 14th. You got this week, all of next week. All right.
Yeah, the
11 days.
Okay, let's make it the 28th. That makes sense. Give them the whole weekend to work on it if they want. That gives us a day. That does not give us a day.
2 or 3 hours to review
Okay.
them all.
Okay. Let's put a deadline of April 28th for projects to be considered for a draft solicitation. It gives the coordinating committee a day, the 29th, to look at them, and we will meet on the 30th to make a decision. And if we make a decision to proceed, that means KJ would start working on the grant application May 1st. Be honest, Sachi, does that give you enough time?
That is way more time than June 1st.
Okay.
Yeah,
What are we
there
gonna
will be a fair bit of juggling going
We
on.
would meet
but,
the 29th of April.
And
you
we
said
would want
30th.
to, obviously, once we know
The
what
30th.
the project proponents are, work with them and the fiscal agent, just make sure we're all on the same page about, what we think the effort's gonna be. And I will also say that even if KJ does the heavy lifting, we still need, some basic information from you. We need time for conference calls. Because we're trying to make sure we understand the project well enough to really put them in their best light to address the requirements and needs of the PSP. So, we're gonna need your help to help us tell the best story we can.
Sure, and I can throw a couple interns in the mix to do some of the legwork if needed.
Okay?
Some of the busy work, we can take care of that in-house.
Okay.
So the question, come back to you, Max, if Buell Flood was the fiscal agent for this grant, you still have an existing contract with KJ, do you not? Or did that expire?
It hasn't expired. We were planning on terminating it because we were going to be transferring to Solano.
Okay.
We can, right, but it's for the planning grant, so
Yeah.
we would need to.
It probably makes sense to do no new contract anyway, just for this specific
We could
task.
do a contract amendment.
Or
But
that,
that-
whatever's easier for you,
and
if
we're
an
trying-
amendment's easier.
That way we just extend the date of the contract and
The
then
scope.
update the scope and fee and
Well,
schedule.
Can you?
Do you currently have a contract?
No, we don't, and that's why, because I can put one in place.
Yeah, you might as well. I mean, we're more interested in the grant contract.
But I wouldn't be able to go, I wouldn't be able to put one in place until May 8th, that's when my board meeting is.
Oh, well, then in that case, then it's fine.
I mean, if,
No, we can't.
I mean, you trust us, you guys start doing work without a contract, right? Trust us.
Prefer not to.
No, we can certainly do that, and that's part of the coordinating committee's budget.
Sure.
And so that's something that's not.
That, yeah,
Not an issue.
just to bridge it, it may make sense,
Okay.
just
Yeah.
from time-wise.
With the project components was taken to pay KJ, correct?
And they already have through the leftover, the leftover funds for the planning grant.
From the grant.
That's right.
Not the coordinating committee as a whole.
That's right. Well, we got both, we got two pots of money.
We do.
Well, no, it's combined with what you have. Well, why don't you talk a little bit about what we have left over from the actual grant costs?
Okay, so the planning grant that the coordinating committee received $1 million for, actually, the plan cost more than $1 million, and so each of the coordinating committee members contributed cash as part of our cost share in getting the grant. And we have about $120,000 left over. We didn't spend it all. KJ was so efficient in completing the plan, and everyone else was so generous with their contributions of in-kind time that we came in under budget essentially. So we have another $120,000 that was contributed for the plan that we don't need for the plan because the plan is complete. The coordinating committee voted sometime last year to keep that money in the pot and to use it for implementation funding. Tasks such as applying for more grants or funding the RCD or whatever it is for coordination. So that's what
And we were spending that now on the YOLO RCD, or portion of it.
for the admin, yes.
Right.
But not all of that.
With this 45,000 or something like that, or whatever it was.
Yeah, something like that for the calendar year, or fiscal year, right. But that would still leave us quite a bit of money available for grant applications or any other implementation tasks.
Well, I think we also committed to $20,000 a year in funding.
That's the second pot.
Yes, you have, thank you very much.
That's what I was thinking, okay.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah,
that's
that's the other pot I was thinking.
That's
Yeah,
your
so-
bank account.
That's correct.
Okay.
So we do have two pots of money. So we have this money that is to be utilized for implementation under the IRWP, and then we've got this additional 80,000 So there's 20,000 from each of the 4 regional water management groups they committed for implementation tasks, whether it be for helping with running the actual plan, doing some projects as part of the plan, or what have you. So that money's available also. And that's another thing that I want to bring up later is to ask again, since we're coming up on budget time again for fiscal year, I want to ask for that continued commitment from each of the regional water management groups. But we can get to that here in a minute. So I think that absolutely that we should utilize some of that money, and we've already talked about it, and
Yeah, we've already
agreed amongst ourselves.
Well, we could probably have that as an action item on our next call then.
Yeah, I just want to plant that seed.
To look at the projects that are submitted under the drought PSD, and then allocate funding appropriately to secure grant application and submittal or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
We can't do that here.
No, we can't. It's not on the agenda.
Okay, I've added it. You guys done on that part?
The one thing that I will, it would be helpful if we were in the loop on the projects that you get, so that we can help at least frame what we think the labor effort's going to be, and, kind of, so maybe once you get the project, we can get a quick call together to just, before the coordinating committee, so we can all get on the same page about, you mentioned interns being available, I don't know if any from Flood's going to be available, but how do we use the best resources and kind of get it done where, we're not necessarily using KJ resources for things that someone else could do.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, as soon as I see him, you'll see him.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yeah, question or comment?
Yeah, I'd like to know what the status of our conjunctive use project is for CSA 20 for Soda Bay and the Kelseyville wastewater or water treatment district, whatever it is that Mark Dolger's been working with the state Department of Water Resources on trying to set up something which would involve an intertie. And so that would be like
I have not been
almost.
involved in that project at all.
So the.
You would have to ask Mark Dellinger about that.
So the question is, why is Mark Dellinger not involved in this, if that's a drought measure and we have a conjunctive use application and that kind of thing, so.
He gets some notifications?
Yeah, he knows about this round.
Okay.
I've been in communication with him. I accidentally went to conference room B, and he was in a meeting at the same time, so that's
Okay.
probably why he had a conflict. But he is aware of this solicitation. So I don't know if you want to try to arrange a meeting with him personally, just to make sure he has that.
I just want to know if that would be considered one of those things, because we're all grappling with drought and emergency funding and da-da-da-da-da-da, intertie counts, districts count, I mean, all these things that count. I know we do have one project here that's actually quite along the way towards solving some of these water quality or water supply issues.
Yeah.
That would involve a lot of those things, and that's the only one I know of here in Lake County that would be close to it.
I did give Mark all the
Eligible.
information and said to talk to Tom if he
Okay,
had
great.
questions and how to funnel it through.
He hasn't talked to me. From what I heard with that and some of the other systems, he may have more than one project. Because he had some other projects, but he may be going after different funding that would actually be available this year. Because CGTH has some emergency funding that they have made available to local water districts, like Willits.
Sure,
But Willits now has full reservoirs.
sure.
A couple of months ago, that was a different story.
Did they finish their intertime to the wells?
No.
I don't know where they are on that, but when they got the funding, they were down to less than 100 days of water supply, and their reservoirs are full after the late March rains. So, but it does for long-term give them an alternative.
Yeah, this is Sachi. I think that's a really good point, is kind of going back to that first round about, what's the best fit for this round of funding, and if there are other costs. I know there are some ag water, mostly it's targeted on farm type stuff, but ag water efficiency, funds that are separate from the $200 million out of IRWM. So, and I think that, Chris, once we get those projects in, we might, kind of do a little brainstorming on what's the best IRWM package, but can we also offer for those project proponents, hey, this may not be the best fit for you, why don't you go look at these other kinds of funding?
Yeah, sounds good. All right, any other project updates? Other than get your projects in. All right, excellent. Let's see, we already had our DWR update, thank you, Kristen. Legislative updates, I don't know if you guys have been following the 8,000 water bonds that are up for discussion right now. I'm not even gonna attempt to talk about those, but I don't have anything else to talk about legislatively, other than there's gonna be some water bonds potentially coming to your vote here soon. That's about all I know at this point until anything gets more put in cement. There's a bunch of different things out there. Anyone have anything from a legislative standpoint to talk about?
A little update on groundwater management. Governor's office has said that there will be some sort of statewide groundwater legislation coming out. Don't know what it is yet. Aqua, Association of California Water Agencies, has put together recommendations for sustainable groundwater management based on lots of previous papers. There's some really strong tools that they're promoting in there as part of the toolbox for local management. Everyone keeps saying local management, but things like 5 years ago you would lose your job over, they're proposing now metering, allocating, pumping, controlling land use decisions, like whether you can plant certain crops or not. Really electric third rail type proposals that now, with the drought, seem people are talking about it. So who knows how it's going to roll out. Again, local control is what is said over and over, but with the backstop from the state, who knows what's going to come out in the end. But these are the big issues. Betsy brought up some of them. If you keep developing areas into trees and vines that have never been irrigated before, you increase groundwater use. And if you convert lands that have traditionally been in crops that you could go fallow, like you could not plant tomatoes this year and you wouldn't have to irrigate, but if you have 7-year-old almonds or pistachios or whatever it is, so that's called hardening of demand. And so these increases in pumping demand are wrapped up in property rights and like how much you can pump, what you can do with your land, would it be considered a takings if you buy a 1,000-acre ranch and all of a sudden you can't put your olives on it because of some state. It's gonna be crazy. And we'll see how it all goes. But kind of going back to the year of groundwater, if we can get together on this theme, if we can kind of lead the way with our groundwater management in our own region, like, hey, we're taking care of things, we're efficiently managing our resource and sustainably managing it, then maybe we'll get left alone. Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, the state can do it, but I think we can do it better.
Well, the CAD is basically the result of overdrafting of a couple of groundwater basins, and everybody has to comply.
Mm-hmm. And we're mostly already doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just double submitting on our wells.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of our wells, and having to convert from NGVD 29 to 88.
We just finished that.
Yeah. So
Everybody doesn't have to comply. Just look at what's going on with the grazing on BLM land in Nevada.
oh yeah.
They just turned it around. They gave him back his cattle. All you gotta do is have a bunch of friends show up with guns.
I wasn't thinking about losing my job on some of those proposals. I was thinking about losing something else.
Well, even just the metering, the measuring of groundwater pumping.
Oh, yeah.
So I wrote our district's groundwater management plan, and I went to a training seminar with 100 other engineers, how to write a groundwater management plan, and they were standing up in front of the class saying, do not use the M word. You will blow, because there's a big public process, and everyone has a chance to participate and give their input, and they said if you propose metering, you will not have a groundwater management plan. And in fact, a couple of years later, the county of Yolo, the supervisors, proposed something similar, they had 400 people show up to their public meeting, which is by far a record for Yolo County. And it was, anyway, so they decided not to do it. And
I'd like to see metering on the permitting,
metering on the permit,
meter the permits.
permits of what?
See how many EDUs have been permitted, put a meter on that measurement, see how much usage you're allowing from groundwater.
Well, I think the first step is we don't even know where the wells are. There's no master list of wells, there's no coordinated ID system, and so we don't know where the abandoned wells are, we don't know where the production wells are, and newly constructed wells we know, but there are thousands and thousands of wells in our region alone that no one knows.
They aren't in that
They're not in the database.
And you got newly constructed wells that the well driller's upset with somebody, so he doesn't submit the report too.
Well, and then in Yolo County, just last year, the county decided that they needed to record the location of their wells. So they were giving out all these permits and doing the tests and the inspections, which is great, but when I was working on a joint project, I was like, well, where are these wells? And they didn't know. So now they collect location information. And that's just Yolo County. There's, 57, 58 counties.
Location, how?
GPS or something, coordinates?
Yeah, GPS, just a
Well,
street
I mean,
address.
GPS would be great, if it's on this parcel, that doesn't necessarily help us a lot, depending on the size of the parcel.
Right.
I know for some groundwater studies and for the properties that we bought in reclamation, trying to locate the wells and find the well logs for them. You go through some of those old well location maps. Some of them I'm not even sure are in the same section. They say they are.
Really scrambled. Or it's like Joe's barn.
Yeah.
This drawing of this X that says Joe's barn.
Turn at the windmill.
Yeah.
There is no windmill.
Anyway, this is
The only thing referenced.
groundwater goodness.
Any regulatory updates? Okay, coordinating committee, regional activities. I was mentioning earlier before we started the meeting, Floyd County Water Agency is looking into an emergency project to help our neighbors in Napa to deliver some water. It's kind of interesting, all the different permits and things you need to go through to change place of use. So there's a bunch of different moving parts here. We've got federal water, federal permits, state permits. It's just very interesting. And long time ago, when the Salon project was built, when Lake Berry S was built, Napa County and Yolo County at that time decided they didn't need any of that water. And ever since, yeah, I know. And ever since the dam's been finished, both of them have been regretting that mistake. And for our Solano interests, we've tried to hold all that water to Solano as much as possible, but we realize that under extreme conditions, we need to help our neighbors when we can. So what we're trying to do is not deliver a whole lot of water, but deliver some water, a couple thousand acre feet as is needed, specifically for drinking water for a couple cities in Napa County. And so it's an ongoing process. We're still kind of trying to figure things out, but we're quite fortunate with the infrastructure where we've got our federal Solano project, and I think we're pretty close to actually wrapping it up, and now we really need to see if Napa actually needs the water, which I think they still do. But that's what we've been doing in Solano County.
When was the initiation of all that?
Probably not long after the governor declared the drought emergency. So it
But
started.
the county hasn't proclaimed a drought yet, right?
County of Napa?
Right.
I think, no, I think not countywide. I don't know, Jeff, did any of the cities, or the county didn't, but did any of the cities declare?
No, some of the cities have volunteer and others mandatory rationing. And I don't know what those numbers are or who exactly, but I know that some of the local municipalities have instituted rationing measures.
I think once a city proclaims, the county has to kind of be the umbrella for them and to ensure that they get reimbursement through federal funds. My reason for asking was just wondering about, I guess the funds for that project if you were gonna try to be reimbursed for that many at all?
Just, we're strictly a pass-through.
Okay.
So there's banked water, so there's a couple of cities in Salona County that are gonna be selling water to the cities that need it in Napa, and the water agency would strictly be acting as a pass-through, being on all the contracts, and Napa County Jeff's group would be the pass-through on the other end. So we'd be passing the water to them, they'd be passing the water directly to their cities. So we wouldn't be asking for any reimbursement, we're just doing it strictly as a courtesy for the cities and the people in Napa County, and for the people and the cities in Salona County that actually have extra water and they can make a buck.
You're just doing it
The
because you
flood
want.
control district of Napa County would wheel the water to the city of Napa, and then they would send it to American Canyon and other places that need it, maybe St. Helena.
You're just doing to make sure you have wine.
Yeah,
There's that too.
That's a good regional project to highlight. I don't know if you do Sonoma County Water Agency like annual updates to your customers. It seems like something that would be a good case to,
Yes and no.
no.
It's
away
one,
our water.
exactly. What are you doing? They have no right to that water.
But it's a partnership
It
that
it is a
if anything
partnership
happens
that
later.
may happen once every 100 years. So that's what we would highlight.
No, what you want to highlight is the human right to
One
water.
other thing I wanted to point out to those who are potentially interested in this drought round, if you look at page 19 of the PSD, there's a specific attachment called drought impacts that has to be prepared, and it covers two topics. One is a description of the regional water management impacts due to the drought and any anticipated or projected impacts if drought conditions continue. You get 500 words, so they pay to do that. But then the second part of this is a description of the water conservation measures, restrictions, mandatory or voluntary, that have been implemented as a result of the drought. So that includes things like copies of local drought declarations, their conservation directives, and things like that. And so I think the project proponents who really are serious about this need to probably think about whether they want their local government to actually declare drought or have some very specific customer messaging about drought conditions and the need to conserve. So, how you demonstrate that will affect your scoring on.
That's per project.
For item number 1, there's 5 points right there. And there's 10 points between those two items on table 9. Does the proposal clear identify the regional water management impacts of the drought? And 2, did the project proponent identify the mandatory voluntary water conservation measures that have been applied? So that's almost half of the proposal level evaluation is on those two topics.
And there would just be one for the whole proposal, or the individuals?
Yes, there would be one for the whole proposal, but we have to, that's why once again, if there's, more than a couple project proponents, we only have essentially a page to cover both of those topics. So this is where the story really starts, is, I think that if anything, that to the extent that it's possible, the grant application has to tell a story of some urgency about this, and about the projects that are in here and how they address this urgency and need.
Yeah, so it will be linked directly to the project proponent saying what their case is.
That's right.
But as the.
And that's 10 points right there out of a possible, really it's out of 15, unless there are proposals that really do meet a specific need for, an area of the city that maybe isn't going to have water if this project doesn't, those are brownie points. If you take out 3 for those, and you're really talking about 10 of the 15 points of the proposal level evaluation is to cover that topic, and then there are 24 possible project points as well. So I just wanted you to kind of direct your attention to that if you're a potential project proponent, have you taken these actions that really help us tell a compelling story?
In 500 words or less.
Yeah.
Actually, that might speak to who we picked to be the middle committee agency, the proponent. They're ones in dire need or have executed lots of drought preparedness, projects and stuff. They may be in better standing. Is that what you're trying to get at as well, Bashi?
Yes, I think it's so much that the the fiscal agent has to be in that position, but certainly the project proponents have to be in that position. So we can tell the story of each individual project proponent where, this project directly addresses a need to bring water to, or, so for example, a groundwater storage would be something around, well, we're seeing evidence of declining water levels, after this 1 year of drought. We're expecting these to continue, therefore we want to implement this conjunctive use project so that we can rebuild our storage, so that we can, improve our position for future years of drought, near and into the future. So that's the kind of story that you'd want to be able to tell.
You're hired.
We just need to have the project to be able to tell that story.
Okay, how much do they enforce the 2-hour parking limit downstairs?
It depends.
All right, I need to go move my car. Why don't we take like a 10-minute break? Everyone that needs to move their car or grab your sandwich, because we're going to power right through to the next meeting as soon as we're done here. Okay. Any goal or objective updates? Have we done anything, following anything? It hasn't been really a whole lot of activity going on, so I haven't seen anything. I have nothing to report. Okay. Coordinating committee funding update. You have your name next to that.
I was thinking about, and that the York County RCD's administrative role.
Okay.
I'm not in, it was kind of spring break last week, and so I don't have a spreadsheet for that, but just the summary is that we're going through that pretty tight budget pretty quickly, and including the muscle task force meeting coordination has kind of sped that up a bit. So I should probably just follow up and give you an update.
Sure. Yeah, I just saw 2 invoices this morning that I signed off on. So yeah, we'll need to touch base and see where we're at with the existing contract and see if we need to augment that. And we'll talk with this coordinating committee to see how we're going with the RCD's help on administering the Westside plan and see where we can go there.
Yeah.
Well, since I do have it on, we do have an agenda item about a court committee funding update. Plant that seed again, Jeff. We want to put an actual official agenda item for our meeting on the 30th about getting everyone to put $20K into their budgets for next fiscal year to contribute to implementation of the Westside IRWM. So my budget, I got to put my stuff in here fairly quickly. So I just want to plant that seed with the other coordinating committee members to see if they can make that commitment once again.
Been there, done that. It's in our draft budget.
Excellent.
Unless somebody took it out without telling me.
That happens all the time to me.
It's part of the IRWM also.
Great. Okay, clarify invasive mussel task force committee structure. Okay, so unfortunately Gary Hansen's not here. I guess he had to leave, go back to the East Coast for some family matters and might not be coming back. So I'll let Tom talk a little bit about who's going to be potentially taking over as the lead from Lake County. And one of the things we did want to clarify is the actual structure of this committee. And what we wanted to make sure is that this was a ad hoc committee so that we could be flexible. So the current structure has more than one actual coordinating committee member on it, which is a no-no when you're talking about ad hoc committees. So I'm going to resign from the Mussel Task Force subcommittee so that we will only have one official coordinating committee member on that task force. And I think that the IRWP coordinating committee would assign or nominate people to that committee. And I would suggest that it be a small committee, 3, maybe 5 members at most, so that it was nimble enough to meet when it can and to actually get something done. So I would suggest Ken Davis to replace myself on the task force meeting. There's a lot of words there. Task force committee. That's right. And I would just open it up at this point for other coordinating committee members if they want to nominate any other stakeholders to represent the West Side for that Mussel Task Force.
We're still in the West Side Regional meeting? Okay.
We are, yes. There's a little bit of overlap right here, but yes, we are.
Chris?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Napa, do we have someone then covering Lake Berryessa? Is that who you just nominated?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so Ken Davis, who I would nominate, he does all of the mussel surveys for us at Lake Berryessa. He does surveys for us on Puda Creek. He does a number of surveys for a number of different agencies. He's a aquatic invertebrate biologist and a fantastic photographer. And he does level 2 training for mussels, so he's well qualified to be on the task force and would probably bring a lot of good ideas, and he's very objective. So that's why I would nominate him to be on this committee.
And he works for your agency?
Yes, he's a private consultant.
Oh, okay.
Who else is on the committee?
Well, currently it's Tom, because Gary no longer works here, unless Scott, I think, does Scott just
Well,
walk
Scott
in?
was
He'll be
here.
right
He just left.
He heard we were still on the other meeting, so he left, I think.
So
I was actually
yeah.
hoping he would stay in for this discussion.
Okay.
I was thinking this discussion was on the mussel task force, not
Well,
on this one.
the reason it's here is because the IRWP coordinating committee formed this subcommittee.
Right.
And we need to make sure, because of the Brown Act, we do it properly. And for it to be an ad hoc committee, there can't be a quorum.
Right.
We can't have, since we only have 4 coordinating committee members, we can't have 2 on this
Right.
subcommittee. So that's why I'm removing myself from that subcommittee. And so there's one official coordinating committee member on it, which is currently the Lake County representative. Why are you so?
Well, I personally do not work the invasive mussel. Carolyn and Mark are the county's primaries on that, and that's why I wish Scott was here.
He did leave his notepad, so I presume he's
Well,
coming
we
back.
can
So I'm not
rethink it.
sure and when, we've lost one staff member,
Right.
that's a significant chunk of our office
Sure.
staff.
Okay, well,
Like
let me-
25% of our
Let me
people in our office.
retake my, I can stay on the task force if someone from Lake County, if you have someone that's not on the coordinating committee that's very involved in the county-wide effort here, that could also help with the regional effort, if they want to take the lead.
Well, that was kind of what I was thinking.
Okay.
Because, it doesn't make sense for me to be the leader if I'm not the one working the program.
Sure.
And,
Yeah, well,
I'm
a marker doing it, that
it's
makes
what
sense.
I overhear stuff and I can follow along with it and what I read in the newspaper and whatnot, but I'm not the expert on the program. I know enough to make me dangerous, that's about it.
That's why I invited Ken Davis to come on, because I'm in the same field. I know enough about it to point him out, but, so what I would suggest then is that I would stay on as an official coordinating committee member, not take the lead on this subcommittee, and I would say that either Carolyn or Mark, if they're so willing to take on the lead role for this subcommittee, and I'd still like to nominate Ken Davis to be the third wheel, and I would be fine with 3 people, and then it's always open to stakeholders, unless we want to invite, a couple more right now and make it a five-person subcommittee, but I honestly, something like this, 3 people is probably fine, makes us nimble, makes it easier to coordinate meetings, phone calls,
Open
open for
put an
discussion.
invite out to, Fish and Wildlife and other folks who participate.
Sure.
3 is fine for me. And I would just say that, make a move to the committee that we, ask Lake County to talk to their staff and get back to with the most appropriate person to serve on the committee, and that'd be Chris and Ken, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I put forward.
You had a question?
Well, and then, just for clarifying for myself, Lake County already has, like, a Lake County
Muscle prevention program. Yes.
And a group that meets with quite a large number of people, I understand, about 20 or something.
We have a large number of participating businesses, resorts, people that screen boats for us.
And that's-
They kind of, we've kind of given them the responsibility of keeping mussels out of the lake.
And one of our staff people attends that meeting.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds like right now 3 is a good number. Okay. Okay, that's it. Confirm next meeting date, location. Per the rotation, our next meeting will be in Woodland or any other area in Yolo County. Time and date to be determined.
The last one in Woodland.
No, that's
Are we meeting on the 30th?
That's right.
There you go, like every day.
The date is set, location, actual time we need to figure out. Yeah, let's see, so, no, the last meeting was in our office, wasn't it? Yeah, it
I
was.
was thinking it was at the RCD office.
Notes
I
in
missed
Woodland.
That would be the January meeting
Notes
you're
at Woodland
thinking about.
Don't
That
you
was
have
at
in
the
January?
city.
Okay, so the Napa's up.
Okay,
Woo-hoo!
for the 30th?
Well, let's do it, yeah, let's do it about 5-ish so we can get a wine turn.
We have our priorities.
Only if you deliver water.
Yeah, I can get our what conference rooms available.
Okay, so that the 30th of April,
Actually, on vacation.
Right.
we'll probably need to start it, yeah, not too early, because it's a little bit of a drive for some of us.
We can do 10, does that work?
That probably should work.
10 to noon?
Okay.
We may not need that much time, but
Yeah, I think we're gonna have just a few agenda items. We're gonna skip a lot of our other updates. It's basically gonna be, looking at the projects that have come in. Are they ready to proceed? Are they good storytellers? Do they make sense for putting forward for an application? And just putting it in cement, the contributions from the regional water management groups for the next fiscal year.
well, I am hosting a room, so.
Okay.
You want to move to 10:30 then?
I'm
So
sorry?
that folks from Lake County have time to drive?
If you wanna start 10:30 or 10, fine?
10's fine.
Okay, yeah, why don't we just make it 10 to 12?
Right.
Actually, Napa's close compared to the other meetings like Woodland or Vacaville.
The scenic drive.
That'll be 804 First Street. At the Flood Control and Water Conservation District office. I'll email that out.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, I think that's all we had for our agenda. For meeting number 1. Okay, so I'm turning this over now to, where are you going? Turn